Hello, Mia Burke again, and I will be speaking on suffering and why God allows it in our lives. So, from the perspective of suffering, partially hinges on control and freedom. For example, I was at a party and my friend said, why is there so much suffering? It's not needed. And I said, well, it is. So she said, well, oh. So you're saying that rape is necessary, that human trafficking and child molestation and pedophilia are necessary? And, certainly not. But I did understand her point, which is, that suffering in and of itself is not a moral or legal issue. It's not moral or immoral. It's not legal or illegal, but instead it is neutral in the sense that it is caused by something else, and it's typically something, and it's part of a much larger picture and a much broader context than just isolating the suffering itself. So, for example, the Holocaust was allowed. God allowed the Holocaust to happen. He allowed Nazis to exercise their control over and to exercise their control and their freedom to violate another person's freedom or another group of people's freedom by the thousands daily. And even though it was not only against the law of the land, it was also against God's law, but he allowed it to happen anyway for people to be free in their decisions. And they did. And they certainly did what they wanted to do. And so if we were to say, well, God, should he have intervened? I think a lot of people probably would say yes. I wish God would have intervened. But God didn't violate their freedom to do what they wanted to do. But that was very general. So let's bring it in a little bit to the bedroom, to something a little bit more personal, like fornication. So fornication is really considered like it's a norm in America. It's a social norm, and if a person physically wants to be with another person, they have the passion and the desire to do it. Then should they be able to? Should they be able to? If their vision only goes in so far as what they can see in the present, but God can see that, well, 4 months of happiness and then an entire year of turmoil from an unhealthy relationship, should he allow you to proceed with this relationship? Should it be your choice or should it be God's choice? Well, in other words, should he be able to violate your will based on the knowledge that you will be suffering and in pain very shortly down the road and for a long period of time? So the question really is, where do we draw the line? Should God control and prevent suffering? And so if you have a conflict of will, you will to do it, he wills that you don't do it, how do you reconcile this? Should God impose his will on you, or does he back away? Well, he backs away. He allows you to do and follow your own desires. And the only way to reconcile this is if your will aligns with his will. And that's really really the control and the freedom to do that is solely on the person, solely on you, because he allows you that freedom. And we know that freedom based on history is not free. People have spilt blood throughout history for simple, basic freedoms. freedoms of will, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom from Jim Crow, freedom from slavery, freedom from oppressive governments, freedom from genocide. You know, people have spilt blood for freedom. So we know freedom isn't free, and freedom is something that is very valuable, that we've seen countless times over across many nations for freedom. So we know it's something that's valuable. And the amazing thing is that God gives it to us freely. He gives us freedom, and he gives it to us freely. He backs off. He allows us to do as we will. And even the suffering, you know, throughout the Bible, God never dodges that bullet. Jesus never dodges the bullet of suffering. So kings, prophets, servants, and even Jesus himself suffered. And the thing is, he suffered for our freedom. He suffered on the cross to show us that there is freedom after death, and that the suffering that we endure on earth is only but for a short time. So ultimately, the suffering, even in Hebrews 5:8, when it says that even though Jesus was without sin, he learned obedience through what he suffered. And in Hebrews 2:10, it says he was made perfect through suffering. So even though, so I believe that God helps us through suffering to show us our wrongs, to correct us of our wrongs, and to help strengthen us and to refine us as people, and ultimately for his glory. So, and I think that's one of the beautiful messages of the Bible, is that even though we suffer, when we are face to face, when we are in his presence, we shall never suffer again, and he will wipe every tear from our eye. That's my time. Thanks for listening.